Well, hello to all Duval County, Florida voters. My friends and I have put together some video interviews for candidates in this year's school board election. We have developed a set of questions for the candidates to address, and we have allowed a period of free speech at the end of the interview for the candidate to give his or her perspective on the work that they intend to do if elected by the citizens of Duval County, Florida. Now, these interview videos are done at absolutely no cost to the candidates. The members of the video team are doing this work to allow any school board candidate access to the video interviews to use as they wish in their effort to inform the voters on their positions. The video team will make the video interviews available for the candidates' use in MP4 format, and will also provide an electronic copy to the candidate. It is our hope that the video interviews will aid the voters in the selection of their school board member. We're happy to assist the members and the candidates that chose to use this method of campaigning. All candidates that were qualified by the supervisor of elections were offered the opportunity to participate in this effort. Not all did. But we want to thank you today for viewing these interviews and deciding on your choice for school board. Now I want to introduce to you Darryl Willie, who is running for district. He's running in District 4, lives there, and he wants. We're going to ask a number of questions of him, and then at the end of that time, we will have a free speech. He will have a free speech time. We'll take a break at that point. I might say this, that all candidates were given the questions before the interview, so that if they're a praying individual, they can pray about, talk to God about how they want to answer and how He wants them to present themselves. So, Darryl, we're just going to move right into question one.
Let's go.
Why are you running for school board?
Balance and belief is what I'll say. Like, at the end of the day, I believe that every single one of our kids can learn at an absolute scale. And if we believe that and believe in the brilliance of our kids, then they can do and be whatever they want to in this life. And in this role in school board, it allows me that opportunity to actually affect change and sustain change. And that's why I say balance. I have the skills and experience from working over 15 years in education, from being an elementary school teacher to a middle school teacher to working at the college level. And now I have 3 kids. And those 3 kids, when I wake up every day, I often wonder, like, what are they going to be when they grow up? And what they are when they grow up is going to be affected by the quality of education that they have. So I know if I'm thinking that, other parents and grandparents are also thinking that. So when I think about this role, it's an ability to be able to affect that change for my kids and other kids in our community. So I'm excited to be running and excited to potentially represent this community, our community, and our kids and families.
And now question 2 is, what qualifies you for a position on the school board?
For me, the qualifications of a school board member are pretty minimal. I mean, you just have to live in the area and have a heart for kids, is what I would think. But for me, it's more than that. Like, I actually have taught in the classrooms. I have worked with teachers before, training them. I have worked with our local education entities, with human resources, with our teachers union. So I really understand our system. And I think that gives me true advantage and context. In addition to that, I'm a military kid. So I actually was born in Georgia, moved to Texas, moved to Germany, North Carolina, California. So I've seen education from so many different lenses and vantage points. So when it comes to Jacksonville, I can bring all of that to this position. So when I think about my special set of skills and experiences, it's because, and I thank my dad for his service, because I was able to see so many different systems and see education from so many different angles. And when I get in that position as a board member, I'll be able to bring all those experiences, plus my current experience as a father and a parent when making those decisions.
All right, question 3, how strong a reader are you?
Man, I love to read. Like, I'm a really strong reader, I would say. Number 1, I have to read every day for my job. 2, I went to grad school. In grad school, you do a lot of reading. And then now I have this, like, it's special to me now because now I'm teaching my kids how to read. So not only am I reading books for me, but I'm reading, The Hungry Caterpillar and teaching them the sort of rhythm and how to read. So I'm a really strong reader, but more importantly, I'm helping my kids be strong readers, because reading is fundamental. First, you learn how to read, and then you read to learn. And if we can understand that, we'll be in a better place. So I'm a strong reader, and now I'm into audiobooks. So I'm busy, I have a lot of things going on, but when I'm in my car, if I'm going for a walk or doing certain things, I'm listening to audiobooks. So it's a different way to engage with text, but it's a powerful way and a way to always always have new knowledge and information. So I would say I'm a strong reader, and I'm an excited reader because I love reading.
All right, question 4. Have you overseen the generation and accounting of large budgets?
Yes. So when it comes to budgets, I think the budget at the district or the school district now is about $1.7 billion. So I can't say that I've overseen a budget of $1.7 billion, but I do work for a nonprofit right now, Teach for America, and we have a pretty significant budget, a couple $1 million budget. So I've seen the creation of that, the development of that, and both the budget and expense side. So if I take that budget and understand and sort of take the practices that I use to create that budget and expenses and lay that over top of a 1.7, there's a couple things I think of. Like, how are we prioritizing our spending? And when I think about prioritizing our spending, it comes to what is the priorities of our superintendent? Like, that's the job of a school board member, is to truly live out the priorities and help them live out their priorities and vision. So when I think about the budget, I've had plenty of experience. And when it comes to our budget in Duval County, we have to figure out what we prioritize. And for me, we need to prioritize people and rigorous learning. So people meaning teachers, frontline employees, those sorts of pieces, and rigorous learning and curriculum. Like making sure we have curriculum in front of our kids that they can really grasp hold to. And when I think about my kids in District 4, it's predominantly a lot of the kids are African American. So do we have culturally relevant text for them? Are they reading information in books that actually relate to who they are as people? So when I prioritize things, it's going to be those people, and it's going to be that information and curriculum that actually relates to our kids.
All right, question 5. What are the most important issues facing the public classroom teacher?
When I think about the classroom teacher, it's such a job. Like, it's not just, you don't just go to school to teach anymore. Like, you have so much documentation that you have to have. You have students who are bringing so much from home with them. You have an administration that is demanding so much of you because of the high stakes testing. So when I think about teachers, number one, we have to figure out how are we creating an environment that's conducive for them to be able to grow and learn and be celebrated. Like, number one, grow. Like, we need to emphasize and put in place systems that allow teachers to be their best and get better every single day. So whether that means local development at the school-based level or whether it means from the district level, we need to figure that out. Also, like, how are we ensuring that the teachers that we have are truly able to be celebrated? Like, teaching is probably the toughest job that you can have because every day it's something different. And I know when I was a teacher, it was that way because one day was great, the next day, who knows what was going to happen. But we tried to make every day great. So I think that's the job of, yes, the board, yes, the staff, yes, the principal, but we have to do everything that we can to ensure that teachers feel valued and celebrated. If we can do that, they'll have the canvas to really be able to get in there and create the change that we want.
All right, question 6. Does a united front always reveal the truth in a situation? Or, we might ask it this way, Darryl. Does a united front present a complete picture to the public of the dilemmas or complexity of a subject under discussion?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I think a united front doesn't always do that, but I think we have to balance the two. I think the way that the structure works at the school board, as many viewers may know, is they have workshop. So what you have is you have all the board members who get together and do a board workshop, and that's where you really are grinding things out, trying to figure out, like, what are the policies? What do we need to change? Why do you disagree? Why do you agree? And that's where the real work happens. But a lot of times the public doesn't see that. It's a public meeting, but it may be during the day or the thing, so the public may not see that. So what you then have is you have a public school board meeting where you have a consent agenda. And that's what this question may be sort of drawing to, is in that consent agenda, you may just approve and check, go down the list and check. But at the end of the day, you may not have seen the discourse or the disagreement or the back and forth that happened. And I think sometimes it's going to be important to know that. So I think as a board member, it may be important to say, yes, it's on the consent agenda, but just letting the public know, we went back and forth with this. And here's some arguments for and against, but at the end of the day, here's where we voted. And I think when I think about my position on the board, I never want to be on the opposite end of every single vote of another board member. I think we can be adult enough and collegial enough to come together and say, I might disagree with you on this point or this topic, but that doesn't mean that 3 topics from now we can't agree. And I think that we can't be one note and single narrative. So I think that sometimes a united front doesn't always show that, but I think as a board and as board members, we can do our best to ensure that our constituents, as well as the general public, understand that we are actually doing all we can to sort of wrestle with these ideas so we can come up with the best solution. Yep.
All right, question 7.
Yeah.
Do you favor homeschools? And if yes, what would you do to assist the homeschool families?
Yeah. Homeschool is a growing population. Like homeschools are something now where students are choosing that option, and a lot of parents are choosing that option. And I think we have to get under the root of why that is. And I think one of the reasons may be differentiation. Like my child learns best in this sort of environment, so I want to go the homeschool route, which I think is fair and right, and I think great. But I think some of our parents and students are choosing homeschool because of the lack of options or some interaction or negative interaction they had with our traditional schools. So we have to make sure that we can get behind that and solve some of those issues. So I would love to figure out how we take some of those homeschool individuals, do focus groups, and figure out, yes, why are you there? But then to your second point, how do we support that? If you're making that choice for your child and that is the best option for them, we need to make sure that there's resources there. I know that there are already some. I ran into some homeschool parents, and they have online virtual groups where they get together and meet at the library on certain topics or subject areas. I know that some homeschool folks are taking advantage of the virtual school, and they're doing some virtual school programming as well. So I think it's a viable option, and I think, but what it does do, it does put a lot of pressure. It puts a lot of pressure on that person presenting that information. So we need to provide as many resources as we can for them, if that is going to be an option for that parent.
Right.
Yep.
All right, now question 8. Should superintendent be a position elected by the taxpayers?
Yeah, I think in our current state right now, I don't think it should. I think that once you get an elected position in that seat, the sort of background, context, and experience of that person may be marginalized. Like, you could run if you have never even been involved in schools or education before and automatically win. Like, because you have the most money or you have the most leverage or momentum. And I think it could really set students up for a bad environment. And since right now we have an elected school board, what that does is balances that out. Mm-hmm. So what we have now is the public is able to voice their opinion about who their school board member, and the school board members actually select that superintendent. So we have a way for actually communities to actually put their voice into it and have sort of public opinion. And I think if you have both be elected, I think you have, it just creates a different dynamic, and a dynamic that I don't think we need here locally.
All right, question 9.
Yeah.
What are the first 3 things you would seek to improve once you are elected?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I would sort of seek to do. And they're not things that I'm promises, because I think sometimes as we get up and we make promises, but I have priorities because there's going to be a superintendent who's new in her role, who's coming up with a vision for what our schools need to be. And our job as school board members is to sort of alleviate some of the pressures of that to ensure that she can do her job. But when I think about priorities for me, I have many, but the things that I'll talk about is, number 1, accountability through communication. Like, we have multi-generational families that are interacting with our school system. So we have young parents all the way up to great-grandparents who are actually raising kids and sending them to school. So how can we ensure that I'm holding myself accountable and we're communicating the things that are happening in our schools? So I have 2 things that I can think of. Number 1, physically getting together, like having forums in community, in churches and community centers to say, here are the hot things that are going on within schools. Here's some updates you need to know about. That is going to be able to gravitate towards the older parents and the parents who want to be and see and be right there in that space. And maybe even some of the younger parents who like to interact. But 2, we have a generation of folks who have been interacting online and in virtual spaces, even like we're doing this interview. So I would suggest that we have things on social media. We have sort of virtual town halls where maybe you can't show up in person, but you can get to us through a computer. Or maybe you're working late that night and the forum doesn't fit with your work schedule, so you can catch it on demand on when it's recorded. I think we have to provide opportunities to interact. So that's number 1. 2 is safety. Like, I think that's been the hot topic in education. We have to focus there. And I would say that our schools in Duval County are pretty safe. I will say that from a sort of physical standpoint. For those who don't know, we actually have police officers that were already in place in middle and high school. They already had officers that were in each school. And now there's a public mandate from the state that says we also need to do that at the elementary school. And we have a lot of elementary schools. So now we're going to have safety officers who are there. And the training for that is going to be important. But I'm about the physical safety, number 1, which I think is important. But we also have to start thinking about mental health and the safety of our students mentally and being proactive about what's happening. Because the incidents that are happening that are causing our schools not to be safe are being done by students who are in those schools. And a lot of times there's some mental health issues that are happening. And if we don't have adults there to address those issues, then we're going to constantly have this cycle of individuals coming back trying to create harm to themselves or other people at their school. So we have to figure out as adults and as a system how to provide that mental health support for our kids. Because I say this all the time, if psychologically you don't feel safe in a school, then you're not going to be able to learn. And a lot of times our students may not feel that. So I think it's about physical safety as well as sort of that psychological safety. Last, I'll say talent. I'm obsessed with talent. I think that every other business, for any business people out there, you know that the main thing you always try to do is get the best people in the right roles to make the best change. And I think that's what we have to do as a school system. From the cafeteria worker to the person sweeping the floors to the person teaching in that classroom to the people working in the district, we should try to make sure every single person is of the highest quality and they're getting the development that they need, because they all indirectly or directly affect kids. So I'm obsessed with talent. And then the last thing I'll say, a bonus, is vocation innovation. I think we've swung the pendulum back and forth. We need to do all vocation. We need to send everybody to college. When we need to actually have a balance where at the end of 11th and 12th grade, students need to have a choice and be able to be ready to open whatever door is best for them to be able to create a successful life. So for some that may be vocational or trade or 2-year school, and some that may be 4-year. But I don't think we need to make that decision as adults. I think we need to provide a sort of a pathway of opportunity. And a student should be able to choose that at the end of their sort of tenure in K-12 education.
All right.
Yep.
All right, question 10.
Yep.
Would you endorse portions of the public education curriculum to be written by a teacher committee and copyrighted for use in the system?
Definitely. I would definitely do that. I think that our teachers are on the ground. They see the curriculum. They understand it. And they're already doing it. Like, they're doing it every day. They're creating the guides and the lesson plans and the unit plans every day. And I think to not utilize their sort of expertise is we're actually pushing away help that we really need. I think the issue that we've had, because this has happened in the past, like teachers have come together and created curriculum, but it wasn't copywritten. And they weren't really given the sort of copyright credit for it. And there may be some union issues and other things there, and I don't know all of that. But I think it would be interesting to incentivize teachers to be able to come into a space, write this curriculum, and then actually be monetized or incentivize that with some money. I mean, because we already have a problem retaining teachers. So why not? You're a brilliant teacher. You took your kids to a certain level. What are your lesson plans? Utilize those lesson plans, and all of a sudden now you're monetizing that situation and creating an incentive for that teacher to not only stay in that role, but also increase the level of rigor in their lesson plans and their units. So I think it's a phenomenal idea. I think it's already going on in a certain place. I think we just have to figure out the copywritten piece and how we incentivize it for teachers.
I think our viewers ought to understand that my knowledge is this, that it's like 10 years ago, I don't know whether it's still like this or not, Darryl, but the attrition rate for an incoming teacher with a bachelor's degree, undergraduate degree, is 3 years.
Yep.
That's as long as they stay. I have a neighbor, well-trained, brilliant girl. She didn't last long. Has gone into business because the classroom was not conducive to her abilities, and nor did it monetize it, as Darryl has said. So this is something that you, as the voters, need to understand about the classroom teacher. I'm a 5th-generation teacher, and it is a tough business.
Yes.
It's a tough business.
Yep.
All right, one last question, Darryl.
Yeah.
What is the real value for the students and parents in a school system where teachers must join and obey a union? And I realize that we need to say they're not actually have to. There is an option.
Yeah.
But what is the value to them of a union? Maybe we could just say.
Yeah.
And that there is pressure there. To join the union.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will say this: all unions aren't created equally. I've done work across the state and across the city. And I think that when I think about a union, you have to think about the staff member or the person who's in the role being represented by the union. And honestly, there's a lot of knowledge and understanding that some people just don't have. Like, if you're a teacher, you may not understand all the policies around collective bargaining and salaries and all these other pieces. So sometimes it feels better to actually have someone else represent you. And I think that's what our union or this union does, is try to represent the everyday worker that is working in our schools, to try to represent them, to push that best forward. I think there is an option. I think the question is interesting because there is an option to join, and there may be pressure from certain individuals to join the union. But I think there's pros and cons. But for me, I think that our union does a really good job of communicating to its members, really trying to represent. And on top of that, unlike some other unions, they actually provide professional development. We talked about getting better every day, and our union actually provides professional development, which I appreciate them for doing that, because it's not just we're going to represent you regardless of your skill set or level or ability. We're going to actually give you the tools to be better. So if there are evaluations or systems that come into place, you can actually get a great evaluation, and we're going to help you provide to do that. But I think it's about representation, and I think having a true knowledge base. And it's hard, like as a teacher, to juggle your curriculum, your lesson plan, your students, and then also worry about having to go represent yourself on a salary negotiation. I think it's a lot for one to handle. So I think the union has its place, and I think and the teachers here have benefited from that, from the union.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand. Do you know about this? We might just add this. I hadn't planned on this, but there is something that the legislature passed that 8 teachers have joined in a lawsuit with regard to this, whereby the union cannot come before you as the school board unless they have 51% membership.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And they are challenging that because it's called like a train bill, where there are so many things lumped together, and that is a piece of that. And so they're saying this should not be.
Yeah.
So you want to speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting sort of legislation, because it really does target unions, especially unions with low membership.
Yes.
I think here in Duval County, we're right above 50%, so it wouldn't necessarily affect it. But if you think about, you have a body that is representing all teachers, but yet it only has a certain percentage of membership. The letter of it makes sense, but the spirit of it, I think you also have to understand why some people don't join the union. It could be a financial barrier. Like, it could be, you know what, I'm already making this much money, I'm trying to support my family, and now I'm having to take this bit out of my paycheck. So maybe they do want to be in the union, they want to be represented, but they just don't want to put that money into it. So I think that's the joy and the benefit of a union. Even if you're not a union member, sometimes you reap the benefits of being in a union. So I think that legislation is one that, in the letter of it, it would make sense to certain people, but at the end of the day, like, there are folks who are being represented by the union who may not be union dues members. So it's a convoluted sort of situation that I think it has to be tackled locally. Like, I think you have to look at local unions, because like I said in the beginning, all unions aren't created equal, and some unions maybe aren't representing their teachers the best, but many of them have the right intent, I would say.
Yes.
Yep.
There is one member of that particular lawsuit against that train bill, as they call it. I think it's 507. I think it's 507. One of the things that she said that I read online was that the legislature, perhaps last year or the year before, passed something where incoming teachers, you're coming in with an undergraduate degree, you do not get a contract for that first year. And so that is one of the things that set their hair on fire. Okay, and I'll be honest, I can understand that. Now, I can also understand an incoming first-year teacher not being given beyond a year. But I think that to come in and have spent that for your 4 years and so forth. So I didn't know whether you knew that or not.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I don't know if I've heard of that particular detail.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
That a first-year teacher does not get a contract.
So they're at will, the full.
I suppose. I suppose.
I think here's my deal about.
And I may be inaccurate, viewers, but that was my understanding of what I read online.
But I think it comes back to, like, there's a new sort of wave and face of who's teaching in our schools. Like, I think we have to understand the reality is, like, gone are the days where you're going to have someone finish 4 years of undergrad and then teach for 30 years. Like, I think there's a transient nature with our millennials and younger professionals where they're looking that 2 to 3 year mark, they're looking for something. So I think we as an entity, as a school district, need to figure out how do we monetize, incentivize, celebrate, value our teachers in that second or third year to ensure that they are ready to stay. And it doesn't have to be like moving to a different position. It could be, all right, we're going to make you the grade level assistant chair. We're going to put you on this curriculum writing team. Like, there's a lot of ways to incentivize it. And I think we get kind of stuck in the traditional way of doing it, where if you look at the number of teachers who came in that were hired this year, I think they hired 700. I think half of them were alternatively trained, so came from the non-college of ed route. So almost 300 were coming right off of from whatever business or off whatever career they had and started teaching. So I think we have to figure out What do we do for that set of teachers who hasn't had 4-year degrees? They may know the content, or they may have the relationship skills or the leadership, but there's something that they may need extra development in. And I think our district is doing a pretty good job of understanding that. They do academic academies in the summer, and there's teams that do that because they're realizing like the population of teachers may not all have that 4 years. And even with that 4 years, if there's still nothing like, there's nothing like being in the classroom. No. Like there's no training like actually being in front of kids and teaching, because you can read a book all you want, and we're good readers. But at the end of the day, it's about like having that experience and that ability to be able to maneuver through an environment. And if we can't provide that, then our teachers aren't going to be able to be developed.
Yes.
Yep.
Now we're going to take a break now, and then Darryl's going to take center stage, and he's going to speak from his heart in the event that there are questions that you might have that he may be able to just intuitively answer for you. So we'll be back shortly.
So first, I just want to thank you all for this opportunity to come in front of you and address, because this is hard work and heart work. And I say that because this work is not easy, and if it was, a lot more people would be jumping in trying to do it. But this is also hard work. It's hard work because it should emote something. It should cause you to be angry or sad or happy, because at the end of the day, this is about kids getting a quality education. And that's why I sit here now, and that's why I'm running for this position. So that every single child that's growing up in District 4 and across our city can get a great education. And right now, that is unfortunately not happening. Depending on where you live, the color of your skin, maybe how much money you make, that determines your educational outcomes. And that's unfair. And that should cause you to be angry. It should cause you to be sad. It should cause you and push you to action. And that's why I'm here. I'm pushed to this action, pushed to run for this seat. And I'm excited about it. Because as I mentioned before, I believe that every single one of our kids can learn at an absolute scale. And if we give them the right tools, the right people in place, the right teachers in their classroom, the right school leaders, the right principals, then they can do it. And they can open the doors of opportunities for themselves. I am a person who has been involved in education now for over 15 years. I taught at the elementary school level and I saw the light bulb go off in my student. I taught at the middle school level and saw the light bulb go off in my student. Taught at the college level and saw light bulbs go off in my students' heads. And that's what I want us to do. I want us to be able to have opportunities for light bulbs to continuously go off in our students' heads. And the only way that we do that is create a system that allows that to happen. So I sit before you and I stand before you today as somebody running for school board, but also as a community member and a father. Like, at the end of the day, when I lay my head down and go to sleep, I think about my kids and what they're going to be when they grow up. And I know that what they're going to be when they grow up is going to be affected by what education they receive. So I want to make sure and ensure that for them and everyone that comes before and after them, that we have a great education. And the way that I want to do that is through policy. The only way that we can do that is through policy, because a system is designed for what it produces. And if we don't change the system, the way you change the system is through policy, then we're going to get the same results. So there's policies around accountability. There's policies around safety. There's policies around talent. There's policies around choosing the right path for our kids. And I want to explore those policies, potentially change those policies, potentially bring those policies to the forefront so we can create the better system for our kids. I'm a believer. I'm a believer in our kids. I'm a believer in this community. And I'm excited and cannot wait to represent you and all the other constituents of parents and families of students of District 4 and the entire Jacksonville. At the end of the day, I need you. I need your help right now because we are trying to win this race. And the only way that we win this race is it's a game of addition. I want to add you to the fold. So come out and help us out. We're volunteering. We're out knocking on doors. We're waving signs. We're calling people almost every single day. So reach out to us. You can hit us up on our website, www.darrylforduval.com. Reach out. We would love to get you to interact with us. You'll be able to walk with me and talk with me and see how we interact with our constituents. And you know what you're going to see? You're going to see my head and you're going to see my heart. You're going to see that I have the skills and experience to do this job, but you're also going to see that I have the passion and energy to get it done and work with people to ensure that we can move forward together. So on August 28th, I need your vote, I need your support, and I need your prayers. Because this is going to be, like I said, hard work and heart work. But once again, my name is Darryl Willie. I'm your candidate for School Board District 4. And August 28th, I need your vote, your support, and your prayers. Thank you so much.